Hello, I'm Rocket. Welcome to this session about the virtual presence hierarchy of needs. Your virtual presence in conference calls is the new dressing for success. And just like dressing for success, you can find your own style. This program will help you understand the priorities and the main considerations when it comes to your virtual presence. Why is it important to think about your virtual presence? For one thing, how you look and sound on a call can accelerate the level of trust people place in you. For another, sounding good helps lower the cognitive load on the participants so they can use the energy to understand your point versus trying to decipher what you're saying because of bad audio. Similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these needs have different levels of importance and they build one upon the other. In this session, you will learn the impact of each need, what to look out for, and recommendations for ways to improve your setup. It may not be possible to implement every recommendation, so be judicious and prioritize. If you have any questions or want to discuss these topics further, please see the links in the description of this video for ways to reach out. The agenda of this session follows the hierarchy of needs in the order of priority. We start with the network connectivity. We follow that with audio. Next up is the lighting, followed by framing of your video. Next, we go to the background of your video, and then we finish up with your camera. Each topic has a set of recommendations ranging from simple to fairly complex. Most of these topics have very deep waters, so it is best to prioritize based on your situation. Some examples of these situations I've come across. Let's say you're sounding garbled on a video call every so often. You want to prioritize getting on a wired connection. If you're still using your microphone on your laptop, prioritize getting better audio equipment. If you have a setup that causes you to face the side or aims up your nose, consider mounting a standalone camera so you can face that camera. If you have odd shadows on your face or are silhouetted due to backlighting, consider moving your setup to take advantage of natural light or getting a key light. If you turn on your virtual or blurred background because you're worried about looking cluttered, prioritize moving your setup, getting a screen behind you, or arranging your background so you don't have to worry about it. The goal is not to need a virtual or blurred background unless it's for privacy or security needs. If you're somebody wanting the bottom line and you're just like, Rocket, tell me what to do. First off, I want to say everyone's situation is different. For example, you might have budget constraints, or you might need to keep things in a very tight space. Keep that in mind and know that some of these may not apply to you. If you have questions more than answers, please get in touch. Use the description in the video for ways to find out how to reach out. For those of you wanting the TLDR version, here you go. First off, do not use Wi-Fi for video conference calls unless that is the only option. Next, make sure you have excellent audio. Good audio is way more important than looking good on camera. There are lots of microphones options out there at every price range. The ones I use and recommend are the Shure MV7s. It is a great choice for under $300. It has both USB and XLR connections, so it will grow with you. When using an external microphone, you will need a stand or boom arm, as well as headphones, so you don't cause echoes on calls. Using a speakerphone is an alternative option. The Jabra Speak 710 or 750 have decent sound and are very convenient as they will travel nicely. The most important thing with the Jabra Speak, connect using the USB cable, don't use Bluetooth. When it comes to lighting, arrange your desk so you get natural light. If that's not possible, get a key light to make sure you have even lighting on your face. I recommend the Elgato Key Light Pro. It has remote control options, has a great stand, and allows you to choose the color temperature. A pro tip, if you have glasses, get the key light 45 degrees above you so the light doesn't reflect into the camera. When it comes to framing, first of all, position yourself in the middle of the camera. Try to position your eyes about 1/3 of the way down on the frame and your chin about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom. It's the eyes that should be, not the top of the head. Try to get the camera as close to eye level as possible. Avoid the camera aiming up or to the side. Also, avoid being a small figure in the frame. If you must use your laptop camera, get boxes or books or something to position the camera so that it is up near eye level. When it comes to backgrounds, avoid virtual or blurring backgrounds. This has to do with you looking unnatural to participants on a call. The edges around you are not perfect or jumpy. Sometimes the lighting doesn't match what your background is. When things don't look natural, the lizard, the amygdala, starts to react with something is wrong. Then your higher order functions come in and say, oh no, it's okay, it's okay. This happens over and over subconsciously so that over time it creates fatigue in the participants. Interesting backgrounds are okay, distracting backgrounds aren't. A fast way to find out if your background is distracting is to jump on a call with your colleagues and ask. When it comes to cameras, if you want to swim deep in the deep waters, look into DSLR or mirrorless cameras with the interchangeable lenses. These cameras are capable of lovely shallow depth of field look and are very powerful. Assuming you're looking for a good USB-based webcam, here are 2 recommendations. The first one is the Logitech Brio 4K. This is a good baseline camera with a sharp picture and good color. There are 2 things to keep in mind when using this camera. The out-of-the-box mounting on the bottom of the camera does come off. Search YouTube for those instructions. Once it's off, you have access to a mounting screw. You can put a tripod or a mounting arm so that you can position that camera at eye level. In the camera settings, change the viewing angle to 65 degrees. That will put you front and center and not show your entire room. The second camera is the Insta360 Link PTZ camera. Along with excellent picture controls, this camera has many useful features, including pan, tilt, and zoom. You can move it around without changing where it's mounted. There's a desk view that shows your desk. So if you have a piece of paper there and you're writing on it, the picture is flipped so the participants see the paper as if they're sitting at your desk. New and different cameras, microphones, and other AV equipment are released regularly. Keeping up is a challenge. The way I keep up is using something called Office Hours Global. This is an online community that leaves no one behind. If this is interesting to you, I highly recommend checking out officehours.global. With that, let's dive into the virtual presence hierarchy of needs. Hello, I'm Rocket. Welcome to the session about your virtual presence hierarchy of needs. This module is about your first and most important need, your network connectivity. The too long didn't read version of this, for video calls, use a wired network connection, stay off of Wi-Fi. This network connectivity is the most fundamental need in that without good connectivity, the rest of the hierarchy is on shaky ground. You can have a $500 microphone, a $5,000 camera with a great lens, install great lighting, and have excellent framing. But if your network cuts out, all bets are off. Wi-Fi has a higher probability of cutting out over a wired connection, and this is just because of the way Wi-Fi is designed. It doesn't have to do with good signal strength or your Wi-Fi equipment. It has to do with the inherent way the protocol operates. Whenever there is some interference in the signal, Wi-Fi will go through a retry process. This retry process often disrupts your video call. When it does, you'll come across as garbled or breaking up. It's built into the Wi-Fi standard, this retry process. It's especially challenging when you're operating on a crowded frequency band like 2.4 gigahertz. I know this personally. I have pretty high-end, high Wi-Fi equipment here in my office, and my access point is right above my desk. Until I learned about Wi-Fi and how it operates, I was having all sorts of issues during calls. Things were breaking up. I was getting garbled. As soon as I switched to a wired connection, all of those issues cleared up. It's almost a given that when somebody starts having garbled video, or you have to say, oh, you're breaking up, they're on Wi-Fi. Test it out. Next time that happens in a call, ask them if they're on Wi-Fi. This isn't to discount Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is great for things like video streaming, browsing, downloading things, doing transactions, things where response time and latency aren't a consideration. When it comes to things like video streaming, you're downloading content that is getting cached on your device. So it can handle retries. It can handle it'll use buffering to deal with those. But when it comes to low latency video conference calls, there is no buffering or caching. So you end up breaking up or coming across as garbled. I expect that over time, new standards will emerge that make Wi-Fi more acceptable for video calls. But at this time, in early 2023, these standards aren't widely adopted and are saddled with backward compatibility requirements that continue with the retry behavior. What about cellular connections? Well, if you have a stable 4G or 5G connections and you're in a stable location, not driving or moving around, these can be better than Wi-Fi. Cellular is less prone to disruption just because somebody comes by with a device that's operating on the same frequency. There are several variables with cellular that you have to consider, such as congestion in your area, the signal strength to your tower, the backhaul capacity from the tower to the central switch, and so forth. Now, when you think about running a wired connection to your desk, you may think, I can't do it. But take a few minutes before giving up and look at a few options. There are low-cost, 100-foot flat Ethernet cables that you can find on Amazon for $30 or less that are decent quality. If it's a matter of running cables through your wall, consider hiring somebody to get the work done. It might be more affordable and more available than you think. Here in the Bay Area, where I live, I use a service called Thumbtack to find people who do these types of jobs. Check your region for similar solutions. Well, what if all you have is Wi-Fi? First, try to see if you can use the 5 gigahertz channels. These tend to be less crowded and have higher capacity, although you will need to be closer to the access point to get the strong signal strength. How to tell if you're on a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi signal? Well, first, if you're on Mac OS, click the Wi-Fi symbol in the toolbar. Up will pop all of the information about the bands you're operating on and all the properties of your Wi-Fi connection. On Windows, you'll click the Wi-Fi symbol on the taskbar, look for the properties of Wi-Fi, and then a window will pop up with all that information. There are also Wi-Fi scanning solutions that check the congestion and signal strength of the different Wi-Fi signals in your area. See the notes in this video for some of those ideas. To close this video, I will reiterate. If you're on a high-stakes video call, especially if you're on a high-stakes video call, do your best to operate on a wired connection. Hello, I'm Rocket. Welcome back to the Virtual Presence Hierarchy of Needs program. This module is about the second need, audio quality. The TLDR, too long didn't read version of this is good audio is way more important than good video. The adage is 80% of good video is good audio. Clear audio helps reduce the amount of cognitive load other people have to exert. Instead of investing energy and understand what you're saying due to bad audio, people will be able to concentrate on the point you're trying to make. In other words, they will have a better chance of listening to what you're saying versus trying to hear what you're saying. If you have any questions about where to start once you've sorted your network connectivity, start with audio. I will be talking about different products in this video. Links to those products are in the description, along with ways to get in touch. A great way to start is to get an idea of how you sound on a conference call. Take your video conference solution of choice, record yourself, and then play back the recording using decent headphones. Contrast that by listening to one of your favorite high-quality podcasts from the same headphones. If you really want to get a great contrast, record yourself using your laptop, desktop, or webcam microphone, and then do that comparison. Now, some ideas for podcasts with decent audio: The Tim Ferriss Show, The Tech Meme Ride Home, and Pivot. These are all voice-based podcasts. And a word of caution, some of those episodes might not have great audio. A guest might join with bad audio. It might be live on stage, or there might be some audio issues that impacted the recording. If comparing with a podcast doesn't work for you, compare with this recording. This is my video conference setup. The idea is to understand the difference so you know what it sounds like as you get closer to better audio. I don't know about you, but I can listen to podcasts with good audio all day long, but I struggle to listen to podcasts with bad audio for more than a few minutes. One of the factors with audio is how your room sounds. Now, if you listen to your test recording and think, I sound like I'm in a bathroom or it's really echoey, there might be a lot of hard surfaces in your room, and you want to stop the sound waves from bouncing around and coming back into the microphone. Consider adding sound panels or blankets to dampen the reverberation. You can start by just putting blankets on furniture or put them on the walls to see what that does. And then that'll give you an idea of what helps, and from there you can make a decision. When it comes to sound panels, the Elgato Wave panels are very effective, relatively easy to install, and look nice. Now, through these videos, you're going to hear me recommend several Elgato products. I find their accessories useful, well-made, and reasonably priced. There are cheaper options. However, my experience is most Elgato products fall in the buy once, cry once category. If there's a lot of room noise in your area that might impact during, your audio quality during a call, like leaf blowers or neighbors or dogs barking, trucks driving by, all those kinds of things, go into your video conferencing audio settings and make sure noise suppression is enabled. Most conference solutions these days have that enabled by default. If you still have noise and after you're recording, here's a couple things you can try. Turn off the automatic setting on noise suppression. Instead, choose the medium setting. And if that doesn't fix the issue, switch it to high. If that still doesn't work, get in touch. We can talk about some of the software and hardware-based solutions that deal with noise suppression. Arguably, the most critical part of your audio chain is the microphone. Just like it is difficult to make a good meal out of bad ingredients, it's difficult to get good audio out of a bad microphone. And by the way, if you're still using your laptop microphone or webcam built-in microphone, it's definitely time to do a sound checkup. For this particular conversation, I'm going to group microphones into 3 types: the earpod style, the speakerphone, and the standalone microphone. Now, you thought I was going to say dynamic, condenser, and ribbon microphone, didn't you? All right, that was a bad audio joke. Now, when it comes to earpod style microphones, this is my shorthand or proxy way of saying any wired headphones that include a microphone. Now, these could be the classic Apple earpods, a gamer headset, a call center headset. These are all examples of headphones with a microphone built in. Now, you might notice I didn't say AirPods. Similar to avoiding Wi-Fi, I recommend avoiding Bluetooth headsets, especially on high-stakes calls. Bluetooth has a very high compression rate as the data travels from the microphone to the computer. As a result, most voices come across as slightly clipped. Just like AirPods is my proxy term for all wired headphones with a microphone, I'm using AirPods as a proxy term for any Bluetooth headphones with a microphone. And I definitely acknowledge this is a recommendation that's difficult to follow. These Bluetooth headsets, AirPods in particular, are really convenient to use. And one of the things about Bluetooth that you got to worry about is its reliability. A lot of the time you might be okay, but ever so often you get that dreaded Bluetooth robot voice. My experience is the robot voice happens when you want it to happen the least, when it counts the most. The next type of microphone I want to talk about are speakerphones. A speakerphone is an integrated unit that has a microphone and a speaker in that single unit. They're different from the speakerphones I found in desk phones in the days of yore. And it took me a long time to embrace the modern speakerphone, since my experience up to that time could be summed up this way. I go to my manager's office, and we start talking about something, and we need somebody else's input. In a very action-oriented way, my manager would let's get that person on the call. He'd hit that speakerphone button on the phone, dial him, we'd start talking, and then we'd have a really painful experience. We'd both be talking really loud at this phone on the desk, and the other person on the other end struggled to hear because the microphone wasn't very good. It was a painful experience. The thing is, these modern speakerphones are purpose-built for video call solutions, so they're worth considering. The speakerphone I use is the Jabra Speak 710. I've also used the Jabra Speak 750. It's just a bit more of an investment. These Jabra speakerphones have good sound quality, they're decent microphones, and they're also portable, so you can travel with them. Now, when it comes to any kind of speakerphone, there's a good chance you're going to pick up more room noise if your microphone is further away from your mouth. So I recommend moving it around to find that balance between ease of use and access and good audio quality. And the one big thing with these speakerphones, connect using the USB cable, not Bluetooth. When it comes to standalone external microphones, these are ones that need a stand or boom arm to hold. Now, before I go too far into this topic, understand that standalone microphones like this are incredibly deep waters. There's decades and decades of engineering involved, basically from the first time sound was recorded. For now, I'm staying in the shallow end of the pool. So I'm going to cover two microphone interface types. The first one is the USB microphone interface, and that connects directly into your computer. And then I'll cover XLR microphones that plug into something that then connects into your computer, often over the USB interface. I find it useful to distinguish between these two interface types because there's such a large variance in quality between the two. XLR microphones have a much wider variety of quality and price than the USB microphones do. XLR microphones go from tens of dollars to thousands of dollars, and professional audio engineers have used these for years because they're tried and true. And don't get me wrong, they're good USB microphones. The thing is that the best USB microphone is nowhere near as good as the best XLR microphone. For comparison's sake, USB microphones tend to run from tens of dollars to hundreds of dollars. Now, I'm not going to cover microphones that directly plug into your headphone jack. If you have one of those and you like them and you use them, let me know. I'm open to hearing about them. When it comes to external microphones, you're going to need a way to hear the call in such a way that it doesn't cause that echo feedback into the meeting. So if you have external speakers and a standalone microphone, the external microphone may pick up sound from the call and send it back into the call, creating that echo. These days, most video conference solutions recognize when a microphone and a speaker are on the same interface and will automatically cancel that echo. However, if you have a microphone coming in on one interface and the speakers going out on a different interface, you have a high chance of getting that echo. So a way to deal with this is you may want to have some headphones instead of external speakers. Now, there's two types of headphones. There are the in-ear headphones and there are the over-the-ear headphones. Some in-ear headphones are designed so that the wire comes up behind you and loops over the ear, and the wires won't show that way. These are called in-ear monitors, or IEMs. I have a low-cost recommendation, the Linsel KZ Pros. And you don't need to get the one with the integrated microphone because they aren't very good. They're about $50. They sound decent and are comfortable enough to wear for long stretches. They're great value for that price. With any external standalone microphone, you're going to need a way to hold it. Now, either with a microphone stand or a boom arm. Desk microphone stands can be super convenient. Just keep an ear out for desk noise. For example, as you're typing, you might pick up thumping from your desk. Boom arms are great if you have a setup that supports them, and there's two styles. There's the overhead boom or the low profile. And when shopping for a boom arm, take a look at ones that won't make a lot of noise when you move them. The low-cost ones have a bunch of springs and hinges that can often make a racket. Now, if you're looking for a specific recommendation, I'm going to go with the Elgato Wave microphone arm. There's two versions. One is the overhead, and the other is the low-profile style. After years of using overhead-style boom arms, I tried out the low profile and found it way easier to manage. It was a surprise. At this point, I do want to pause and talk a few minutes about your personal style. I don't include style as one of these hierarchical needs because it's more of a choice than it is a need. I bring it up now because as you're going to debate and decide on which type of microphone, headphones, and microphone stand you go with, it's worth considering how you look on camera and how you want to show up, and then being deliberate about it. A simple example, you can decide that using out-of-the-box ear pods with those white cables are good enough. And by the way, they are super effective, especially on mobile calls. The one thing you want to consider is when you show up on camera, you're going to have the wires show up as well. And this can be distracting to the participants on the video call. Now, for any number of reasons, you might decide that's perfectly okay and you're going to embrace that look. I'm not here to judge. I simply recommend thinking about how these decisions impact your style, and don't make these decisions by accident or by default. In another slightly more subtle choice, if you decide to use an external microphone, do you show the microphone in camera frame or not? Personally, I think it's fine to show the microphone in the frame, but you want to take a look and decide for yourself if that's okay. Now that I've covered the basics of the external microphone setup, here are a few recommendations. Now, for USB microphones under $50 or even under $100 US, I'm not going to make any recommendations. Not because I don't like them, but because there are so many YouTube videos out there that do the comparisons and make recommendations for this price range. The creators have ways to test these microphones and do a great job, and it's not something I'm super interested in doing. So for USB microphones above $100 and below $300, I'm comfortable recommending any Rode or Shure brand USB microphone. I've used the Rode NT USB microphone. It works great, and you can find it for less than $150 US. In the buy once, cry once category, I recommend the Shure MV7, the one I'm using here. It has both a USB and XLR interface. It has excellent sound, and because it has both interface, it can grow with you if you decide to change to XLR. And when it comes to a pure XLR microphone with good sound, the iconic Shure SM58 is a great microphone choice for less than $100. Now, while you can get a very good XLR microphone for less than $100, a decent XLR to USB interface can run between $100 and $300, and even higher depending on your need. I've not found any under $100 that I can recommend. I've not done an exhaustive test, so I'm open to hearing others' opinions. I do have two that I can recommend. The first is the Elgato Wave XLR interface. It's under $200 US. It's super easy to use. It has a nice volume control as well as a well-placed mute button. It also has good volume gain, which is useful for some of the quieter XLR microphones, such as the Shure MV7 I mentioned earlier. The second recommendation for XLR to USB interfaces is the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. It's just under $200, and one of the big differences is it has two XLR inputs. It's great if you have a setup where you need a second microphone, like for example, you want to run sound to a different part of your work area. Having that second XLR interface is very convenient, as you can leave that second microphone there. I've talked a lot about audio, but I've really only scratched the surface. There are so many options and variations. For example, what about lavalier microphones, also known as lav mics? What about shotgun microphones? What about using a mixer as the interface into your computer? What about feeding audio into your camera and then into your computer over HDMI? What about EQ? There's so many options. To make this manageable, I've kept things fairly narrow and specific to this video conference solutions, and even more specifics to the solutions that I've used. If you have questions or interested in this type of things, reach out. See the video descriptions for ways to get in touch. Hello, I'm Rocket. Welcome back to the Virtual Presence Hierarchy of Needs program. This module is about the third need, lighting. The TLDR, too long didn't read for this topic. Good lighting is the key to high quality video. Good lighting can make a mediocre camera look good. Your key light is your main light. It is the most important aspect. Aim for soft, even light on your face. You might need a second fill light to fill in any odd shadows created by that key light. Now, if you have a lot of high stakes calls, you might consider additional elements such as backlights, also known as hair lights, to help create separation between you and your background. Links to any of the products I mentioned in this video, along with ways to get in touch, are in the description. I will admit, for this particular subject, most of the recommendations are in the buy once, cry once category. Over the course of several years, I've tried different cheaper products that worked, but were just missing some of the features I wanted, like networkability and portability. For any of these, you can search YouTube for low-cost options and recommendations. Now, here are a few examples of things to look out for when setting up your lighting. First, you want to look out for the silhouette. Now, if you have a bright light source behind you, like a window, you might show up on camera as a silhouette. In this case, you're going to want a good key light to even you out up front. Next, look out for those bright lights that only cover part of your face. The most common version of this is when sunlight comes through a window to one side. Use a key light or fill light on the other side to even things out. Finally, look out for those top-down lights that create shadows in the lower part of your face. These are usually caused when lighting sources from the ceiling are aiming down on you. You'll use a key light or fill light to even things out. I'm going to start with a summary of the main lighting elements for video calls. I will then follow that up with a deeper discussion about each of those elements. The first element is the key light. It's the most important light. This can be natural sunlight or it can be some kind of light fixture. Next is your fill light, sometimes needed to remove odd or unnatural shadows created from the key light. Next is your backlight, sometimes called a hair light or shoulder light, although in some complex cases, the hair, shoulder, and backlights are separate lights. But for this purpose, a backlight is the light that's aimed down from above and produces separation and dimensionality between you and your background. Finally, there's your background lighting. This is optional lighting that can add and create a specific mood or visual effect. There are two ways to approach your lighting configuration. You can start with natural light and adapt to it, or you could start with a dark room and build up. If you want to control every aspect of your lighting, get your room as dark as you can. Cover all your windows, pull down your shades, all that. From there, you can build up your lighting profile. An alternative is to start with the natural light that you have and supplement with things like fill lights. How you approach this depends a lot on your situation and what look you're going for. I recommend simply picking one of these two paths and see where it leads you. I am definitely not going to cover all the lighting elements used in studio setups because this is yet another deep water subject. If you're curious and you want to learn more about this, start with the search on YouTube of 3-point lighting and go from there. For a more in-depth discussion of each of the lighting elements used in the video conference calls, I'm going to start with the key light. The key light is the most important of the lights, the key, if you will. With your key light, it is desirable to have light with a big surface area. The larger the surface area, the softer the light diffusion. Using smaller lights as key lights, you run the risk of the lights being harsh and creating hard-edged shadows. Now, if you can get away with it, natural sunlight is one of the best key lights. There are some considerations when dealing with sunlight. One is what happens when the sun moves across the sky during the day, or as it shifts during the year. Another is what to do when it's cloudy or it's even dark outside. Now, to account for these situations, you may want to include a key light in your setup, even if you have good natural sunlight. One of the key lights I can recommend is the Elgato key light. Now, it's remote controllable over Wi-Fi. The included stand is high quality and can be extended to be very tall, which is good if you have glasses. The color temperature is adjustable, and it's just big enough that it produces a soft light, so you don't need to get a softbox. Okay, softboxes. Now we're starting to get into some of those deep waters. I think this one's worth a quick review. A softbox is used to soften and diffuse light. Now, depending on the light you have, it's either a rectangular box or a circle dome. It has translucent front panel along with a reflective interior. The front panel diffuses the light, spreading it out evenly and eliminating harsh shadows. The reflective interior helps to further soften that light and then increase the overall output. Now, soft boxes are used to create a more natural looking light and that's less harsh and more pleasing to the eye. There's also many softbox attachments, things like grids and barn doors and egg crates. Most of these help either focus the lights or stop light from spilling out on the sides. Now, at this point, I'm going to step back from this deep waters. And this is one of those where if you want to know more, reach out or do some YouTube searches. Now, earlier I mentioned that the Elgato key light has a nice tall stand. Here's a pro tip. If you wear glasses especially, raise the lights to 45 degrees above you. This will prevent the light from reflecting off your glasses into the camera. Next on the lighting elements is the fill light. The fill light is a light used to fill in shadows and even out the light that's sometimes created by the key light. My recommendation is if you need a fill light and you have the space, look at the Elgato Key Light Air or the Key Light Mini. These are around $100 US and have the same network-based controls as the standard Elgato key light. One difference between the two, aside from size and brightness, is how they're mounted. The Air comes with a stand and the Mini doesn't. So if you go with the Mini, you're going to need some separate mounting arm. Now, if you don't have the space, then look at something like the Nanlite PavoTube 6C2. The Nanlite PavoTube series comes in a bunch of different sizes. They're tubular shaped. And the 6C is great if you're working with a small space because it's only 6 inches tall and it attaches to most standard mounting arms. This is a super versatile light that can change color temperature and color hue. It runs on batteries and it has USB-C power as well. They're portable so they can travel. They run around for $140 US. Now, if you also need a remote control for your Nanlite, there's a separate remote control available for around $15 US. On the next topic of lighting elements is the backlight, also known as hair lights or shoulder lights. These lights help create separation between you and your background. It does this by adding contrast to your head and shoulders. The light is usually mounted above you, pointing down. Now, one idea for a backlight is to use either the Elgato Key Light Mini or the Nanlite PavoTube 6C2. As I mentioned earlier, both are small enough and can be mounted on standard light stands or mounting arms. I've mentioned light stands and mounting arms a couple of times, so let's talk about ways you can mount these lights. When you need to mount lights, as well as other things, for example, if you need a backlight that's getting above you, aiming down, you're going to need some kind of stand or mounting arm. There are several alternatives to this. Now, you can use a purpose-built standalone light stand. You can get a table clamp and stand that attaches to your desk. You can go with a C-stand, also known as a Century stand, or you can get an adjustable pole, sometimes called a Vari-pole. When it comes to purpose-built light stands, they're relatively inexpensive, and because of that, they're a great place to start, just to make sure the setup works. Now, if you're in a super small place, these might be a challenge because the legs tend to spread out. You can get a 2-pack of these light stands on Amazon for under $40 US. The table clamp and stand work when you don't have the space for stands behind you. I found that stands that can extend to around 44 inches tall or 110 centimeters are high enough to keep light from reflecting back into the camera off glasses, and they aren't so harsh on the eyes. The newer desktop light stand is a good option. It starts at 21 inches tall and can extend to 44 inches tall, and you can find these for around $25 US. Now, a C-stand, also known as a Century stand, is super versatile. If you see pictures of movie sets, you've probably seen C-stands. These extend fairly high and have loads of attachment options. Now, one of the options, usually it's included, is a crossbar arm that attaches to the top and extends out from the stand. The C-stand base has an adjustable footprint, and so it might fit in small space setups. In some cases, you're going to need sandbags to weigh down the base so it doesn't fall. To get a sense of how C-stands are set up, used, and the related safety tips, search C-stand on YouTube. You can get a C-stand with some of the common accessories for around $150 US. Now, another option for mounting things is to use an adjustable pole that spans between two surfaces, like your floor and your ceiling. Now, these adjustable poles go by a lot of different names. Vari-pole, auto pole, third-hand support systems. For this, I'm going to use Vari-pole. The Vari-pole has a small footprint, so it's definitely worth considering in smaller spaces. These come in different sizes and formats. There are floor-to-ceiling ones, desk-to-ceiling ones, and some are long enough to go wall-to-wall. A quick safety tip when using Varipole between two walls, put something between the pole and the wall on each end, like a piece of 6-inch by 6-inch plywood. This helps distribute the pressure, otherwise you run the risk of punching a hole in your wall. With C-stands and Varipoles, you're going to need a way to mount the lights using a clamp with a mounting arm. Welcome to the world of grips. Movie grips are people on a movie or studio set responsible for setting up and moving equipment, as well as many other things. Now, getting lights in the right place is a big part of it. I have 2 clamp arm recommendations depending on the amount of weight you've got. Now, for smaller, lighter items, the small rig's 9.8-inch arm is a good multi-purpose choice. You can look at this clamp size here to make sure it's going to be big enough to go around so you get a secure clamp. These run for around $30 US. For larger items, I recommend the Manfrotto Variable Friction Magic Arm. I just call these the Magic Arms. You're going to need the Super Clamp from Manfrotto to complete the picture. Now, these are amazing and incredibly useful. You can get both of these as a set for around $200 US. Now, there's cheaper versions out there of the Magic Arm and Super Clamp. I've had just enough issues and troubles with them that I decided to stick with the Manfrotto brand. Returning to the video called Lighting Elements, the final lighting element is your background light. If you like subtle colors and you want to create a specific mood for your background, you don't need anything large. While this light is optional, it can make a nice, memorable effect. And one of the best lights I've found for this is that Nanlite Pavotube 6C2 that I mentioned earlier. I tend to mount these above me and pointing at my background to create a nice, even light. Let's have a quick aside about color temperature and white balance. In a video camera, the white balance setting adjusts the color temperature of the camera to match the color temperature of the lighting in the room. This helps accurately represent colors in your video. Generally speaking, the lower color temperatures show up as yellow or orange, and the higher color temperatures tend to show up as blue. Now, our recommendation is to set your camera white balance and the white balance of the lights, if they're adjustable, to the same temperature. Now, 5600 degrees is a great place to start. Now, if you want to get a deeper understanding of color temperature and white balance, search YouTube for White Balance Explained. Tons of videos out there ranging from simple to very complex. Hello, I'm Rocket. Welcome back to the Virtual Presence Hierarchy of Needs program. This module is about the 4th and 5th needs, your framing in the camera and your background. The TLDR, too long didn't read, for this topic. When it comes to framing yourself, get front and center. Position yourself in the middle of the camera frame and then try to get it so your eyes are 1/3 of the way down the frame and your chin about 1/3 of the way from the bottom. And note, it's the eyes that should be 1/3 of the way down, not the top of the head. And a rule of thumb for backgrounds: an interesting background is okay. A distracting background takes away from your presence. Work to set up your background so you don't need to use a virtual or digitally blurred background unless it's for a security or privacy situation. Most virtual backgrounds look unnatural. The edges around you aren't perfect and the lighting of your face doesn't match the background. And so as a result, your lizard brain, the amygdala, is going to be triggered thinking something's wrong when it sees that. You end up expending a lot of energy subconsciously tamping this down, and it leads to fatigue, and that can lead to lower engagements from your participants. Now, there are so many cross connections between framing and the background that I decided to combine these into a single video. A specific example is how you're framed in the camera directly impacts how much of your background appears on camera. That in turn defines what options you have to deal with your background. As always with any of these videos, links to any of the products I mentioned in the video along with ways to get in contact are in the description. There's a lot of things to look out for when it comes to framing and backgrounds. First off, sometimes the camera is going to be aiming up so it goes up the nose and shows the ceiling behind you. And this is especially true if you're a laptop user because that's a natural camera angle when you're sitting with a laptop at a desk. If you have a high stakes call, it's better to have your camera closer to eye level. And a way to make that happen is to put your laptop on a box or some books or a stand. Now, if you're in a working session, having the camera at an angle where you're looking away might be okay. But when you're giving a presentation or on a high stakes session, it's better to face the camera. Now, it's usually the case that you're facing away when you have an external monitor connected to your laptop and you're using the laptop camera. Now, to get it so you're facing the camera, you can use an external camera that you can mount on your monitor or on a stand. Now, if you're dealing with a super high stakes session, somewhere where you need to have direct eye contact, consider a teleprompter setup. They're fairly complex to set up, they're a bit expensive, but in the right circumstances, the teleprompter setup is a game changer. Now, sometimes you might show up small or on the bottom of the screen, and this usually happens when the camera's too far away or it's aimed upwards. Of course, the natural thing is to move your camera closer or aim the camera down. You might need an external camera to get this to work. Another thing to watch out for is if you have a super wide view and there's a lot of things behind you in the screen. This often happens with webcams that have wide field of views, and some webcams have ways to adjust that field of view. And if you do have one of those webcams, look for ones that can set to around 65 degrees. And also in some webcams, they have the zoom in and out feature, and that's another way to get that narrower field of view. When it comes to backgrounds, keep an eye out for super distracting things, especially if you find yourself with a desire to turn on those virtual or blurred backgrounds because you're unhappy with the way it looks. Now, some options to deal with that. First off, you can arrange your background so you're happier with it, or you can change your setup so your background is something different. Now, I realize this is really easy to say and sometimes difficult to accomplish. But there is another option. You can get a screen that sets up behind you. I like neutral gray screens as a backdrop, and that way you can use colored lights to create this lovely effect. I don't recommend green screens unless you go through the process of figuring out how to set it up and use it effectively. Another way to address your background is to invest in a camera with an interchangeable lens. The right lens can get you a shallow depth of field, and that way your background is naturally blurred. This is called the bokeh effect. When it comes to framing, this has a direct impact on how you're seen. If you're small in the frame at the bottom, you're going to be seen that way. If you look at the camera, if you look away from the camera, you're going to appear disconnected or uninterested. But if you're front and center, you come across as confident and present. And there's this natural tendency just to open up the laptop, start a call, and let it go. The downside is, unless the camera is raised up, it's going to aim up your nose and show the ceiling behind you, which can be a bit distracting. Also, if you're looking down at the camera, there's a chance you come across as a little condescending or even overly casual. In some cases, it's unavoidable to deal with that. Just be aware of it. When it comes to high-stakes conversations and presentations, it's best to have that camera near eye level. Raise it up using a box, a book, or a laptop stand, or you can have an external camera that attaches to a stand or your monitor. When it comes to laptop stands, I like the Rain M stand. These are well made, they look great, and they go for around $40. Now, the ideal framing for you in the video is to have you front and center with your eyes about 1/3 ways down from the top of the frame and your chin about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom. Now, to get this framing right, you may need to adjust your field of view or zoom in your camera. Some webcams have that ability to change the field of view. If you do have one of these, look for a setting around 65 degrees, and that'll bring you front and center. It'll also narrow how much of your background you have to worry about. Your background is a super important part of your virtual presence because your background can convey your personality and your interest. Also, if you get a very neutral background, it just focuses on you. A distracting background, on the other hand, can be just that, a distraction. Instead of seeing and hearing you, people might be trying to figure out what's in your background. My recommendation is not to use virtual or digitally blurred backgrounds unless it's a matter of security or privacy. And why do I recommend this? Aren't virtual backgrounds fun? Well, here's the thing. Most virtual or blurred backgrounds look unnatural. The edges around you aren't perfect, and often your lighting doesn't match what's in the background. As a result, the lizard brain, your amygdala, goes, something's wrong when they see that. Your higher order brain then has to respond with, it's okay, it's just a virtual background. Shortly after that, the amygdala reacts again with, something's wrong when they see it. And this conversation goes on and on subconsciously. And this is hundreds of thousands of years of evolution we're dealing with here, right? The amygdala is looking for changes in the environment for a fight or flight response. And when the amygdala sees something unnatural, it's going to pay attention. Now, the result of this back and forth between the lizard brain and the higher order brain is after a while, you start to get fatigue. And often people don't know why, and they start to check out. Now, the other reason to avoid virtual or blurred backgrounds is it sends a message that you have something to hide. And this can erode trust. Now, at this point, I'm going to return to the conversation about personal style. I don't include personal style as part of the specific hierarchy of needs because it's more of a choice than it is a need. In this case, what's in your background is very much a personal choice. In some cases, you might be like, I don't care. It is what it is. If people are bothered, that's their issue. Now, I support that view. At the same time, it's worth being conscious of what people are seeing, and does that match what you want to put out there as your personal style? I'm not here to judge. I simply recommend you make a conscious choice about this rather than making an unconscious one. A way to simplify your background setup is to use a privacy screen behind you. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there about setting up privacy screens. You can make something or you can buy something, maybe pick up some photography backdrop setups. There are so many variables involved here that it's hard to make a specific recommendation when it comes to setting up these photography backdrops. But here are some things to think about. First, you're going to need a way to hold or mount your backdrop. There are stands and wall mounts that are made specifically for this, and usually they're reasonably priced. Your backdrop has to be wide enough to span the whole width of your field of view. And your field of view and how far behind the screen is are two main factors. Now, you may want to choose some lighting for that backdrop to add a nice color effect, so neutral color backgrounds are really good for that. I've included a bunch of links to better YouTube videos about building or buying these backdrops. Now, I personally tried a bunch of different things before I found one that works for me. I tried photography backdrops made out of cloth to start with. I'd use a C-stand arm and I'd hold up the cloth right behind me, and it looked okay. But then I found the wrinkles in the cloth were really distracting, and it was difficult to keep those wrinkles out and keep them out. And then I had to figure out a way to hold down the cloth because every time I moved or air blew on it, the whole cloth would move. Eventually I gave up because it was a lot of hassle. But then I heard about the Manfrotto collapsible background. And this is a backdrop that comes in a couple of different sizes and it has a whole bunch of different color combinations. The one I found is 6 feet by 7 feet. And on one side it's black and the other it's a neutral gray. These run between 200 and 300 US, and they have an edge all the way around that holds the material so there's no wrinkles. You might think of getting one of these, and if you do, I recommend getting the magnetic support kit. The support kit has an arm that attaches to the top of the included stand, and on the ends of these arms are two magnets that hold the backdrop. It's easy and fast to set up as well as take down. Now, these magnetic support kits are around $200 US. It's not the backdrop and the kits aren't super portable, but they do have carrying cases. Now, to give you an idea what I mean, I wouldn't casually check these as luggage, but if I was driving somewhere, I might take them with me, especially if I had a high stakes call while I was on the road. Now, here's the thing. I've talked a lot about this backdrop setup, but if you're not seeing it on this video. So I've got the gray screen set up behind me. It's 7 feet wide and 6 feet tall. As a result of that, it's able to be 4 or 5 feet behind me, so I'm not really crowded here. It's a great setup. Now, right now you're seeing it without colors. Let me give you a view of what it looks like with the colors. As you can see here, it looks way different than it did before. So I've got two of those Nanlite Pavotube 6C2s. I've got one down here and I've got one up there. And this makes a lot of difference. Now, I definitely recommend if you have some kind of background where you aren't able to turn it on, this is a great option to really simplify how you look. You're also really present in front and center, and people are paying attention to you, not anything in your background. Now, when it comes to super high stakes calls where you might need to have direct eye contact, a teleprompter setup is really good. Now, the teleprompter setup for eye contact during a video call is different from a teleprompter used for broadcast or presentations where you're reading a script off the teleprompter. When it comes to a video call, a teleprompter can be used to look directly at the camera and have the video call on the screen in front of you. Now, you can appear a lot more engaging to the remote audience, and this can be set up in front of the teleprompter is set up in front of your camera, connected to your computer, and the video conference is on that teleprompter. Now, teleprompter setups are complex and can be fairly expensive, but if you think you might have a use case, get in touch. We can talk about different options. As I wrap this module up, I want to reiterate just how you're framed and what your background looks like can impact how people perceive you. When you're front and center and have a nice background, it helps increase the trust people place in you, especially early on, and you show up more confident. Hello, I'm Rocket. Welcome back to the Virtual Presence Hierarchy of Needs program. This module is about the sixth need, your camera. The TLDR, too long didn't read for this topic, is this is the last of the needs for a reason. Because here's the thing. You can have a really great camera, but without good lighting, good framing, good audio, your virtual presence is compromised. I don't have anything against laptop cameras. Similar to the adage that the best camera is the one that's with you, if you only have a laptop webcam, then use it. Be sure to review the framing and background video for tips on how to get the best out of it. An external camera offers a higher degree of flexibility and most of the time, higher quality. The first decision you're going to need to make is about what type. Are you going to get a webcam, or are you going to get a mirrorless or DSLR camera with interchangeable lenses? Now for this video, anytime I say mirrorless camera, think of that as a proxy term for mirrorless or DSLR camera that has interchangeable lenses. When it comes to webcams, I could recommend the Logitech Brio 4K and the Insta360 Link PTZ. Mirrorless cameras have higher quality and more flexibility than webcams, but often come with higher complexity and expense. You'll need a way to connect the camera to your computer to send video output. Some of the latest mirrorless cameras have USB-C connections that send that video. But for those that don't, you're going to need to connect through HDMI. And in that case, you're going to need a way to convert from HDMI to USB. Two things mirrorless cameras need: clean output and a constant power source. Okay, three things. You're going to need a way to mount the camera. Check out the lighting video for mounting options. Later in the video, I'll make a few mirrorless camera recommendations, but there's so many variables that I'm not going to make a recommendation in this TLDR part. Webcams are super convenient. They're plug and play, portable, and usually small. If you're shopping for webcams, look for those where you can change your field of view, or you can zoom in and out. This is going to help you be front and center in the frame. Most webcams have a way to mount to your top of your monitor, and the more versatile ones have mounting screws so you can put them on a stand. Some of the newer cameras have PTZ or pan-tilt zoom capabilities, as well as AI tracking that follows you around. This is great if you have to move around your area. And I have some recommendations for webcams. The first is the Insta360 Link PTZ. This camera has good quality and it has AI tracking that follows you around. There's some features that make it stand out from the crowd. One is desk view mode. In this mode, the camera points 45 degrees down toward your desk. The surface of your desk is flipped and cropped so that it's shown as if if you're sitting at your desk. This is great if you'd like to have a piece of paper as a sketchpad during a video call. People in the call will see that piece of paper right side up, and it's like they're sitting at your desk. And if you want to travel with this camera, there's third-party carrying cases available, and the camera runs around $300 US. Another related option is the Osspot Mini 4K, and similar to the Insta360 Link, it's a PTZ camera with AI tracking. It's a bit larger than the Insta360 Link, and it's bulkier to travel with. These are around $270 US. And if you have to choose between the two and you can afford it, definitely go with the Insta360 Link. The last of the recommendations is the Logitech Brio 4K. This is a good all-around camera that has ways to adjust that field of view. I recommend setting that field of view to around 65 degrees to get you front and center. Now, a pro tip with these cameras is the mounting option does come off the camera. And here's the thing. You're going to want to search Logitech Brio mounting in YouTube to see how it's done. And once you remove it, there is a mounting screw exposed. These cameras run around $170 US. There are lower cost webcams out there that might work for you. Now, I don't have any specific recommendations for $100, under $100, but you can search YouTube for budget webcams. It's a great way to see comparisons and get recommendations. Like I said before, if you're doing it that way, look for webcams that allow you to set your field of view as well as have mounting options. There are so many different types of mirrorless and DSLR cameras out there, as well as interchangeable lenses. It's difficult to narrow down this field. I can make two recommendations. The first one is the Panasonic Lumix G7 with 14 to 140 millimeter lens. This camera runs just under $500 US, lower if you find a used one, and it's a decent price for what you get. In addition to the camera and the lens, you're going to need a way to mount the camera, a dummy battery for power, and an interface into your computer. Now, these can run another $150 to $500 depending on what you're doing and what your setup is. Now, the included lens is capable of a nice shallow depth of field, which naturally blurs your background. The autofocus on these cameras are just so-so. You're going to have to work with manual focus. And if the camera's far away, that can get a little tricky, so you might need to involve a second person. Now, what is it with those millimeter numbers when I was talking about lenses? Now, this is another deep water topic, but it's worth a quick review. While there are a lot of types of lenses out there, for this purpose, we're going to talk about two. The first one is fixed focal length, or prime lenses. They don't have any zoom capabilities. Now, if you're going to go this direction, be sure you know what you're getting, because the only way to zoom in and out is to move the camera. The second type of lens is variable focal length, also known as zoom lenses. These have a range of close-up and far away. How close and far away they go are represented by those two numbers. The wider apart those numbers, the more range the zoom in and out is. To calibrate, 50 millimeters is considered a natural looking distance. The lens I recommended with that Panasonic has 14 to 140 millimeter range, which is fairly flexible, especially given that price tag. And if you go with the Lumix G7, pay attention, as there are similar packages that have a 14 to 42 millimeter lens, and that's not great for these setups. The next recommendation I have is the Sony a7 IV. Now, if you're going to pick one of these up, I recommend a lens that has something around 24 to 70 millimeter range, especially if that's your first lens. It's versatile for video calls. This camera is on the pricier side. The body costs around $2,500 US. There are some bundles out there that have the body, one or two lenses, and a bunch of accessories that run around $3,000 US. The color on these cameras are terrific, and the autofocus is stellar. This is one of the things Sony is known for. This might be over the top for your day-to-day setup, unless you're doing a lot of high-stakes presentations and high-stakes calls. And when it comes to connections, there are a lot of options out there to get the camera connected into your computer as a video input source. Webcams tend to be USB, so they're simple. Some of the new mirrorless cameras also have that USB-BC input. Now, and these are easy to work with because you're just plugging those straight into your computer and they show up as a webcam. Cameras with HDMI outputs need some kind of adapter that converts HDMI to USB so that it shows up as a webcam. I'm going to cover two methods for converting HDMI to USB. The first one is the single adapter, also known as an HDMI capture card, and the second one is the video switcher. For the HDMI capture card option, I've used the Elgato Camlink 4K. This runs around $125 US. Alternatively, I found some generic versions that do 1080p 60 for less than $40 US. And currently, the highest resolution supported by video conference systems is 1080p, so that generic option may be sufficient for your purpose. The second option is a video switcher. This is useful when you have multiple HDMI inputs and want to quickly change between those inputs. You can also do things like picture-in-picture and graphics overlays with video switchers. The inputs into the switchers can be computers, cameras, tablets, basically almost anything with an HDMI output. Modern video switchers have a USB-C output that connects into your computer and acts like your webcam. And one of the more powerful, affordable video switchers is the Blackmagic ATEM Mini. The base model has 4 HDMI inputs and a USB-C output. A way to use this video switcher is to have a main camera, maybe a second camera, and your computer all as inputs. This setup allows for some seriously interesting configurations. First off, it's an alternate way to do screen sharing. When you connect your computer into the video switcher, it acts as a second display. Now you can quickly share your screen by switching to that input on the video switcher instead of fumbling for the screen share method. Now, note that this entire screen is going to be shared. You can also do picture-in-picture during a presentation. The basic ATEM Mini has this picture-in-picture controls so you can show your computer screen and your main camera at the same time. Now, this can really help with participant engagement because you're going to be seeing you as well as your screen share. You can also set up a whiteboard or overhead camera. Now, this is great if you have a whiteboard that you need to stand at, or if you have overhead that you want to have a piece of paper where you can illustrate something. Now, last of these scenarios is the telestration. This is pretty advanced. You can connect your tablet running a drawing app or a note-taking app into your ATEM, and then you can use the keying capabilities to create what's called a telestration effect. This is when you draw on a tablet and what you draw on that tablet shows up on your screen. The setup takes some work, but personally I found it worth the investment since I do a lot of this. If you're interested in that telestration, look for a separate video about it, or just get in touch. When it comes to video switchers, I prefer the hardware-based ones. I find them more reliable and they're not subject to my computer's resource utilization. At the same time, there's a lot of really great software-based switchers out there, such as OBS and vMix. With software switchers, you're going to need ways to connect your camera to the computer, either directly with a USB input through HDMI capture cards or over the network using NDI. All right, I realize I've introduced a new term, NDI. This is a way you can send video and audio over a network connection. Now, if you're interested in this, I recommend searching Getting Started with NDI or Getting in Touch. There's a handful of things you want to watch out for when it comes to cameras. First off, it's easy to get obsessed with cameras. There is power and beauty in creating pictures and recording video, and that can draw you in. Just be aware of it. Now, as a result, I've talked with people who've asked about cameras and what they should get, and they haven't even thought about good audio or their lighting. I don't recommend starting with your cameras. You're way better off starting with your network connectivity and your audio quality than working on your lighting. A rule of thumb is this: if you have to prioritize between audio and video, it's way better to have great audio and not so great video than it is to have bad audio and great video. At some point, you may want to learn about things like white balance, especially if you travel to places that have different lighting configurations. Auto white balance is perfectly fine and may work for you most of the time. Learning about how to set your white balance gives you more options and flexibility when you encounter situations that may need more manual control. If you have lights with temperature controls, try starting at 5600K and see where you go from there. If you don't have lights with temperature controls, there are apps out there that help measure white balance. One of them is KEVWB or KEV White Balance. This app is good if you need to manually set your white balance in your camera and you want to match those in the room. Now, I've included some links to some great YouTube videos I found helpful when learning about white balance and color temperature. Similar to white balance, at some point, it may be worth learning about ISO, exposure, f-stop, shutter speed, all the interesting things like that, especially if you find yourself in situations where you want to have a lot of control over the picture quality. Some webcams have the ability to change some of these things. Almost all mirrorless cameras, at least the ones I know of, have the capability to manually set these things. And how deep you go in this depends on how much control you want. I don't cover these topics like ISO and white balance, not because they're super complicated, but because you don't necessarily need to know that library of camera terms just to get started. I find it perfectly okay to start with auto settings in your camera, and as you gain more experience and want more control over your picture quality, then you can learn more about those other settings. And philosophically, when it comes to being book smart versus learning through practical experience, I'm usually in favor of the practical experience when it's safe. As I finish up, I just want to say the topic of cameras is as deep as it is wide. It's easy to get lost in this topic. I will continue to emphasize getting sorted with your network, your audio, and your lighting before thinking about cameras. When you work with your camera setup, think about how you're going to use it. Here's a few scenarios. If you have a stationary setup, work on getting that camera mounted in a solid location. If you need to move between a few places in a single room, think about multiple cameras, one in each station, or get a PTZ camera that follows you. If you're going to travel, think about the size, weight, and convenience of that camera setup. If you're going to give lots of high-stakes presentations or on high-stakes calls, think about investing in a mirrorless camera so you can get that nice, shallow depth of field with a naturally blurred background. Now, if you really want a knowledge boost about this, I recommend checking out Office Hours Global. Point your browsers to officehours.global to get started. At Office Hours, every day you can ask questions of an incredibly experienced panel that has deep knowledge in audio, video, lighting, virtual reality, event production, computer modeling, logistics, and more. Now, this is just one in a series of videos about the virtual presence hierarchy of needs. Be sure to check out the rest of them so you get the full picture. And with that, I'm Rocket, and thanks for watching.